Hi guys. I just caught sight of myself. I'm literally, you know, whenever you do your makeup real good and you kind of go and just kind of, you know, stare at yourself in any screen you pass. Well, that's me right now. Anyway, welcome back to Midnight Hun. This is chapter 3. My intro is going to be a little short because I'm also doing an Instagram live for this. So I'll kind of mix my intro in with the Instagram live. So, and if there's anything that I miss, I'll just stick a fun little ding sound with a fun little bit of text. But yeah, this is the intro, but there's more info to come. So give me just one hot fucking second. Y'all, the costume. She's not the one. She's not the one. I'm so annoyed because I bought contact lenses. I bought a gold set and a black set. So I could have either been Hungry Alice or like Perfectly Full Alice. And they didn't fucking arrive. I'm so annoyed. But I put the look on and I was like, I look too much like just like a classic vampire. But do you know what? Alice has like great fashion sense by the end. I meant to be Alice, sorry, you know, for the floor. She has great fashion sense by the time Breaking Dawn comes around, and like obviously like Bella's the one, she goes to Alice for like the wedding kind of fashion and all that kind of crack. But in the first film, Alice wears like shirts and waistcoats and like she is essentially a little kind of scene girl, I feel, which is an interesting vibe for Alice. Oh my god, hey Keelan, what's the crack? Yes, Keelan, thank you for getting Alice immediately, love to see it. Hi Jenny and Glenn, I'm presuming that's you on one of your accounts. Good evening, hello. I was trying to devise like a drinking game, but it's kind of like it's not ideal for playing a drinking game because like it does be just me sitting on my own drinking and you just there sitting on your own drinking. But do you know what? If you want to do that, you're welcome to. My thoughts were drink once every time someone sighs, because literally when I was editing the last chapter I couldn't get over how many times it was like Edward sighed, he sighed, she sighed, they sighed, we all sighed together. So I'm thinking drink once for every time someone sighs. I'm thinking drink once for any time Edward calls Bella the girl or that girl, and then drink twice anytime he calls her Bella Swan, like full name. I wanted to do one that was more like Halloween based, but I wanted to do like two like Halloweeny ones. So I wanted to be like drink every time the doorbell rings because it's gonna be trick-or-treaters. Haven't had a single trick-or-treater this evening. I mean, obviously it's really good to see that people are like taking seriously that you should avoid like contacts and all that, and obviously should avoid, you know, sweets from strangers in a time like that. That seems kind of like a good idea. But it's sad because it kind of would have been nice to see people in costumes, but whatever. And then I was also gonna say drink every time you hear a firework. But I live off the Ballingon Road and there is, like, it's literally constant. I don't know if you can hear it, but like if that was me, I would just literally have to have like a drip going straight into the bloodstream because the fireworks are non-stop. And they're actually, I couldn't believe how crazy it is here. I wanted to get snacks for this, so I purchased, oh you prick. I was like, what would be like a spooky snack that's like sort of vampire-y? So I got little jelly people because I was like, they drink blood even though Alice is a vegetarian. And then I was like, oh, I'll get Skittles because they come in a red bag, and you know, red is a vampire colour. Like I was really quite stretched, to be honest. But they had sour Skittles and sour Skittles are just better, so I have sour Skittles. You know, like the commitment to the act, she's about 40% there, you know? Danny, as I see you comment there, Danny suggested something earlier. He was like, you should do a previously on thing, because I know I didn't release chapter 2 as quick as I would have liked to, and like I didn't release it with an awful lot of time for today. So for anyone who didn't get to see chapter 2, or who didn't get to, who hasn't seen any of them, or does not like Twilight at all, Danny and Glenn, previously on Midnight Sun. Basically, first chapter, Edward comes across, it's basically him being like, I'm so bored in school, life is shit, I'm just like, every day is walking purgatory, blah blah blah, being like super dramatic. And then obviously first day Bella arrives, he's like, why the fuck can I not hear this bitch's thoughts? But it's also like, I don't care, you know, I'm too cool, I don't want to care that I can't hear her thoughts, I'm not invested, you know. Then he goes to science class, specifically biology class, sits beside her and goes like crazy with lust over her scent, goes absolutely bananas, like runs out of the room when class is done, and like the end of the chapter is him like driving off into the night. Edward, a bit emo. Edward is, the E in Edward stands for emo, let it be fucking known. He is peak emo. But so yeah, that was chapter 1. Chapter 2, basically Edward has like escaped off to the Denali's, which are the kind of like snow tribe version of the Cullens. They're kind of like semi-vegetarian, they live off in the snow. He's up there basically like moaning and sulking, and he's kind of like, do I go back home, or you know, will I just kill her, or what do we do, blah 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 blah. Long story short, he goes back home. He has this other back in the cafeteria, and he's like, okay, like, where is she? I want to know what she's thinking, or I want to know what like people around her are thinking. So he gets a bit obsessed, a bit hashtag obsessed with our dear Bella Swan. And then they have biology again, and it's all this sort of thing of, he wants to leave her with a better impression than the previous week. So he's trying really hard to work out what she's thinking, because obviously he can't hear her thoughts. But then she's also like, she's got game, like she is also trying to work out what he is, or like what's up. She's like trying to suss out, you know, like, what's with the eyes, babe? What's the story? Why were you such a bitch last week, you know? So she's trying to get the tea as well. And then the chapter finishes where basically like, he kind of got like a little bit too into it, a little bit freaked out, and he's like sitting in his car again, whatever. And Bella has just driven out of the parking lot on their second day of interaction, basically. So that's where chapter 3 picks up. So I think for me, you're welcome to follow along at home. But I think for me, drink once for every time someone sighs, drink once for every time he calls her that girl, drink twice if he calls her Bella Swan, full name. Is there anything else I wanted? Finish your drink if I go absolutely crazy because Carlisle is in this chapter. If Carlisle's in this chapter, all bets are off. I'm gonna lose the fucking run of myself. But yeah. So let's go. Chapter 3 is called Risk. Truly, I was not thirsty, but I decided to hunt again that night. A small ounce of prevention, inadequate though I knew it would be. Carlisle came with me. We hadn't been alone together. Oh my god, I literally just was like, yeah, if I lose my shit because Carlisle's in this chapter, 3 lines in, child out. Oh my god, no, though, I'm not finishing my drink. I literally just made it. There's like 600 mils of what's essentially a Shirley Temple with rum in it, but I will take a big slurp of my blood. But yay, you up the lads, love to see Carlisle. I'm a great bartender. I'm such a good bartender. Anyway, Carlisle came with me. We hadn't been alone together since I'd returned from Denali. As we ran through the Black Forest, I heard him thinking about that hasty goodbye last week. He'd reached for my arm. I'd seen how it had hurt him when I'd cringed away from his hand. I don't understand. Has there ever been a time I watched myself take a deep breath, saw the wild light in my eyes through the filter of his deep concern? Has any one person ever smelled better to you than the rest of them? Much better. Oh. When I'd known that he understood, my face had fallen with shame. He'd reached out to touch me, ignoring it when I'd recoiled again, and left his hand on my shoulder. Do what you must to resist, son. Son! Oh, I fucking love Carlisle, guys. I have to, like, I've matured in my taste, you know? Like, I was very, very intensely Team Edward. And I still am, let's be real, I really am. But Team Carlisle is, you know, it's becoming my new home team. Team Carlisle and Team Charlie. Never had as much respect for the dads as I do now. I literally, like, not to be into DILFs, but like, Charlie Swan, Carlisle Cullen, if you are free on Thursday night, I am free on Thursday. Will we meet up on Thursday when I am free on Thursday? You know? He was wondering now if he'd done the right thing then, sending me away. Wondering if he had hurt me with his lack of trust. No, I whispered as I ran. That was what I needed. I might have so easily have betrayed the trust if you told me to stay. I'm sorry you're suffering, Edward, but you should do what you can to keep the Swan child alive, even if it means that you must leave us again. We were barely jogging through the darkness now. Better that than to put her in danger. She'll be gone in a year or two. You're right, I know that. Contrarily, his words only made me more anxious to stay. The girl would be gone in a year or two. Is it pride, Edward? There's no shame in... No, it isn't pride that keeps me here. Not now. Nowhere to go? I laughed shortly. No, that wouldn't stop me if I could make myself leave. We'll come with you, of course, if that's what you need. You only have to ask. You've moved on without complaint for the rest of them. They won't begrudge you this. I raised one eyebrow. He laughed. Yes, Rosalie might, but she owes you. Anyway, it's much better for us to leave now, no damage done, than for us to leave later after our life has ended. Just to circle back there for a hot second. See, they were saying like, oh, you know, like Rosalie might begrudge you if we have to leave. This is something I cut out from chapter 2, but whatever way Stephenie is written, whatever way Rosalie is written, she's written as such a bitch. I literally couldn't get over it. Like, every interaction that is had that Rosalie is in, like anytime she says anything or anytime like Edward's reading her thoughts, she's made out as such a bitch, which I think is unfortunate. Like, I know she kind of has a whole character arc, and by like the end of the Eclipse Star of Breaking Dawn, like she's very much into having Bella as part of the family, blah blah blah, but like she's really made out to be a bitch. And I just kind of, you know, I liked that we got like more character for Emmett, but then on the flip of that we've just gotten like kind of almost less for Rosalie, because it's just been like, okay, she's the bitch sister who doesn't like Edward, like move on, don't dwell, you know. Which, like, there probably needs to be a bitch in the story, but they have Jessica as well. Like, y'all don't need two bitches. But anyway. But you're not leaving? I sighed. I should. Like, this bitch be sighing. What holds you here, Edward? I'm failing to see. I don't know if I can explain. Even to myself, it made no sense. He measured my expression for a long moment. No, I do not see, but I will respect your privacy if you prefer. Thank you. It's generous. Oh, Jesus. It's generous of you, seeing as how I give privacy to no one, with one exception. And I was doing what I could to deprive her of that, wasn't I? That was kind of a little bit pervertedly written there. We all have our quirks. He laughed again. Shall we? He just caught the scent of a small herd of deer. It was hard to rally much enthusiasm for what was, even under the best of circumstances, a less than mouth-watering aroma. Right now, with the memory of the girl's blood fresh in my mind, the smell actually turned my stomach. Fuck's sake, I sighed. Like, this boy really must be cutting around just like every single time. And I've said before, he doesn't even need to breathe. He doesn't even need to take in the air to sigh. But every time he takes in air, he literally must exhale it like, life is so hard for me. Like, please, sir. Please calm down. Anyway, he sighed. Let's, I agreed, though I knew that forcing more blood down my throat would help so little. When Carlisle went to dress for his early shift at the hospital, I stayed by the river, waiting for the sun to rise. I felt almost swollen from the amount of blood I'd consumed. But I knew the lack of actual thirst would mean little when I sat beside the girl again. We got the girl! What was it? What did I say? 1 drink for the girl, 2 drinks if he says her full name. I'm gonna go with 1 drink for now. This is really, I've made those rules being like, oh, you know, they won't happen that often. Like, I'm sure I only noticed the whole sighing thing because I was editing chapter 2 for what, like, so intensely over a short period of time that I was like, I just noticed the sighing so much more because of the way I'm editing it. But no, it appears that I am correct in that they literally just fucking sigh all the time. Cool and motionless as the stone I sat on, I stared at the dark water running beside the icy bank, stared right through it. Carlisle was right. I should leave Forks. It was just a year or two, and then the girl would disappear. She would go on with her life. She would have a life to go on with. She'd go to college somewhere, start a career, perhaps marry someone. She does marry someone, Edward. You'll be surprised who, but she does. Every one of the humans around me had that same potential ahead of them, a life, and I rarely stopped to envy them. I should leave her to her future, stop risking her life. That was the right thing to do. Carlisle always chose the right way. One more day, I decided, I would see her one more time. I could handle that. Perhaps I would mention my pending disappearance, set the story up. This was going to be difficult. I could feel that in the heavy reluctance that was already making me think of excuses to stay. To extend the deadline to 2 days, 3, 4. But I would do the right thing. I knew I could trust Carlisle's advice. And I also knew that I was too conflicted to make the right decision alone. Much too conflicted. Alice was waiting for me, sitting on the top step at the edge of the 3rd floor. What like a subtle brag. Oh yeah, the 3rd floor? Yeah, we got 3 floors. 3 floors? Yeah, we've got 3 floors. Yeah, 3 floors. Yeah, 3 floors. You're leaving again, she accused me. For fuck's sake, I sighed and nodded. Sorry, Niall, for anyone who hasn't read the comment. He said, I'm eternally baffled as to why the vampires continued going to school every movie. Yeah, see, well, this is it, right? I saw this post the other day and this actually blew my fucking mind. Because, like, you really don't think about it because, like, the books are quite long. So you kind of don't think about, like, what's the full timeline of, like, from Twilight to the end of Breaking Dawn. Like, what is that? Right. It's... I saw a TikTok and I'll find it for the edit and put it in because this literally made me go wild. It's 2 years or less. Because basically, Twilight they're meant to be in... Now, this is another issue, don't know the American school system. They're in what's equivalent to 5th year. And then in New Moon and Eclipse, they're in the equivalent of 6th year, because then they graduate in Eclipse. So then I'm pretty sure what the story goes is that they graduate the like May, June of 1 year, and then that September they get married, and then 9 months later she has the baby. Oh no, wait, not 9 months later. Because, oh, this is the thing that really fucked me up. The pregnancy, obviously because Renesmee was growing so quickly, fucking resume renaissance Renesmee, because she was growing so quickly, the pregnancy's only like, oh, I think it was like 2 or 3 months. So I'm pretty sure she has the baby in like February or something like that. So it's literally, the timeline of the 4 books is 4 years. So it feels kind of weird for them to be going to school so much, but realistically it's so little, which just blows my freaking mind. It's just crazy.
I need to talk about this. Bella turned 18 in September, and then a few days after her birthday, Edward leaves and they don't get reunited until the end of March. They have just a few weeks, and then the entirety of Eclipse happens in May, June. They get engaged the end of June. Plus they're seniors, they're having graduation and all of that on top of this. They get married in August, go on their honeymoon. She gets pregnant, and then she has a baby, Renesmee. She has Renesmee before she's 19. She gets gifted that cabin for her 19th birthday after she's already a vampire. All of this happens within a year, and Edward is gone for like half of it. It's too much.
And I suppose the whole point of school is that whole like normality thing. Like if they go, I think they say it in the first film. It's that whole thing of like, if they can go to a new town and pretend they're youngest to be like 17, it means they can stay there for like at least like 4 or 5 years. Whereas if they went there and like everybody was meant to be like 25 plus, they'd be like growing too quickly or growing not enough. That like give it like 4 years and I'd be like, you haven't aged a literal fucking day since you got here, what's going on? So I think that's the whole reasoning behind like continuously going to school. But yeah, it's Twilight's freaking wild, guys. It really fucking is. I can't see where you're going this time. I don't know where I'm going yet, I whispered. I want you to stay. I shook my head. Oh my god. Maybe Jazz and I should come with you. I was like, who the fuck is Jazz? Who the fuck is that? Jasper. It's Jasper. Clearly, Vanilla, you dumb bitch. They'll need you all the more if I'm not here to watch out for them. And think of Esme. Would you take half her family away in one blow? You're going to make her so unhappy. I know. That's why you have to stay. For a brief moment, she was swept away into one of her strange visions. I watched along with her as the indistinct images flickered and whirled. I saw myself mixed in with strange shadows that I couldn't make out. Hazy, imprecise forms. And then, suddenly, my skin was glittering in the bright sunlight of a small open meadow. This was a place I knew. There was a figure in the meadow with me, but again, it was indistinct, not there enough to recognize. The images shivered and disappeared as a million tiny choices rearranged the future again. I didn't catch much of that, I told her when the vision went dark. Me either. Your future is shifting around so much I can't keep up with any of it. I think, though... She stopped, and she flipped through a vast collection of other recent visions for me. They were all the same, blurry and vague. I think something is changing, she said out loud. Your life seems to be at a crossroads. I laughed grimly. You do realise that you sound like a carnival fortune teller, right? She stuck out her tiny tongue at me. Today is alright though, isn't it? I asked, my voice... Oh, sorry, I read that as if it was Alice. I picked it up just a touch too much. You think Jasper... Sorry to sidetrack there. You think Jasper is the most fuckable Cullen? I agree that Alice is. I would... Oh, see, I don't know, because I'm too like... I was going to say, I see too much of myself in her. I have sort of a similar length hair and I'm currently painted white, so I mean... That would be why I see quite a bit of myself in Alice right now. But usually, you know, not too similar. But, so I don't know if I'd be like, would I want to be with Alice or would that be too weird for me because, you know, I'm Alice. I think if you asked me when I was like fully in my Twilight phase, I would say obviously Edward. But now I'm kind of like, I feel like I still would go for Edward. I feel like I'd go for Emmett. Because that boy is like a fucking brick shithouse. He is huge. So I think I'd go for Emmett. And then I think I'd go for like Charlie or Carlisle as well, which is a bit grim because I do be a young soul and they do be slightly older. That threw me off so much, you know, fuck, marry, kill. All the Cullens. Oh yeah, so today is alright though, isn't it? I asked, my voice abruptly apprehensive. I don't see you killing anyone today, she assured me. That's whenever we were in college. I'm so bad for saying when I'm in college because I'm no longer in college. But when we were in college, that feels like something we would say like on a day where we had meetings with lecturers or something. We would be like, okay, calm down. I don't see you killing anyone today, like, but let's not go there, you know? So that feels, you know, that feels personal. Thanks, Alice. Go get dressed. I won't say anything. I'll let you tell the others whenever you're ready. She stood and darted back down the stairs, her shoulders hunched slightly. Miss you. Really. It was a quiet ride to school. Emmett and Rosalie were oblivious, having another of their moments, gazing into each other's eyes with wonder. It was rather disgusting to watch from the outside. I'm literally... I just fucking saw Niall say that Emmett is a himbo. You're absolutely fucking correct. Emmett and Rosalie are himbo and bimbo, love 2K forever. Literally, they really do be just obsessed with themselves. Which is like, I'm sure if you're one of them, it is real cute. But if you had to sit in a car with your brother and sister who were like, I love you, I love you so much. I can't wait to not die ever and just be together forever. Oh my god, isn't that so great? I'm sure, and this on the way to school. I don't want to talk to anyone, see anything, hear anything on the way to college or school or anything like that. I'm sure at that time you'd be like, yes, you must die now. We were all quite aware how desperately in love they were. Or maybe I was just being bitter because I was the only one alone. Babe, me. Some days it was harder than others to live with 3 sets of perfectly matched lovers. This was one of them. Maybe they would all be happier without me hanging around, ill-tempered and belligerent as the old man I should be by now. Sorry, as the old man I should be, as the fucking rotting corpse I should be. He's like 107, I think, in Twilight. Come on, sir. Don't lie about your age. Of course, the first thing I did when we reached the school was to look for the girl. Just preparing myself again. Right. It was embarrassing how my world suddenly seemed to be empty of everything but her. It was easy enough to understand though, really. After 80 years of the same thing every day and every night, any change became a point of absorption. The girl drove slowly into view, her eyes intent on the road and her hands tight on the wheel. She seemed anxious about something. It took me a second to figure out what that something was. To realise that every human wore the same expression today. The road was slick with ice, and they were all trying to drive more carefully. I could see she was taking the added risk seriously. She parked not too far from me, but she hadn't noticed me standing here yet, staring at her. I wonder what she would do when she saw me. Blush and walk away? That was my first guess. But maybe she would stare back. Maybe she would come talk to me. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs, hopefully just in case. Fucking Edward's like a little like fanboy. Oh my god, like what if she comes out and like what if she talks to me? Oh my god, like what if she looks at me? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. He's so cute. She got out of her truck with care, testing the slick ground before she put her weight on it. She didn't look up, and that frustrated me. Maybe I would go talk to her. No, that would be wrong. Again, the curiosity ached like a thirst. It was as if I had to know what she was thinking, as if nothing else mattered. I would go talk to her. She looked like she could use a hand anyway, at least until she was off the slick pavement. Of course, I couldn't offer her that, could I? I hesitated, torn. As averse as she seemed to be to snow, she would hardly welcome the touch of my cold white hand. I should have worn gloves. No! Alice gasped aloud. Instantly, I scanned her thoughts, guessing at first that I had made a poor choice, and she saw me doing something inexcusable. But it had nothing to do with me at all. Tyler Crowley had chosen to take the turn into the parking lot on an injudicious fuck, I don't know how to say this word. Injudicious speed. Jesus. This choice would send him skidding across a patch of ice. Sorry, I just thought of something there. I was talking to my friend Connor. He was like messaging me about the first episode, and he was talking about, you know, I think there's a bit where I can't pronounce stymied is the word. I now know how to pronounce it. But there's a bit where I'm like stymied, and he sent me a message and it made me laugh so much. He was like, whenever you said that, it just made me think of Da Vinci, and it literally just sent me on a fucking reel. I thought that was so funny because I didn't notice it at all until he said it to me, and I was like, I am exactly like that. Ugh. Anyway. The vision came just half a second before the reality. Tyler's van rounded the corner as I was still watching what had pulled the horrified gasp from Alice's lips. No, this vision had nothing to do with me, and yet it had everything to do with me. Because Tyler's van, the tires right now hitting the ice at the worst possible angle, was going to spin across the lot and crush the girl who had become the uninvited focal point of my world. Oh, the drama of this, I really do live for it. I kind of thought maybe it wouldn't happen until chapter 4, that they would kind of like drive this chapter, but I'm so fucking excited to see it here in chapter 3. Even without Alice's foresight, it would have been simple enough to read the trajectory of the vehicle, flying out of Tyler's control. The girl, standing in exactly the wrong place at the back of her truck, looked up, confused by the sound of screeching tires. She looked straight into my horror-struck eyes and then turned to watch her approaching death. Not her! The words shouted in my head as if they belonged to someone else. Still locked into Alice's thoughts, I saw the vision suddenly shift, but I had no time to see what the income would be. I launched myself across the lot, throwing myself between the skidding van and the frozen girl. I moved so fast that everything was a streaky blur except for the object of my focus. She didn't see me. No human eyes could have followed my flight. Still staring at the hulking shape that was about to grind her body into the metal frame of her truck. I'm just thinking, right? I have some more continuity issues, and I know that I did not write this book nor make the film, so technically it's not my continuity issue, and like obviously they planned it a certain way, whatever. But thing one of two, I'm pretty sure that I thought the car crash happened at the end of a school day. Maybe? Can my voice go any higher? Like, again, this is the very, and it could just be the way it's edited together maybe in the film, that it's like, it's shown at maybe the end of another school day, but it actually just happens to be the start of another day. So that's not the one I have supremely the issue with. But what I do have the issue with is, dear Stephenie Meyer, what I do have the issue with is, Edward's after saying that she parked quite close to him and made a whole thing of like, oh, maybe she'll pass by me. But in the film, and I'm pretty sure in Twilight, the first book, she makes the whole point of being like, oh, you were the whole way across the parking lot. So what's the truth? How close or not close was he? Like, obviously, no matter how far he has to go, he's still going to be super quick, and it's only going to take him, you know, the blink of an eye, whatever. But, like, I feel like if I was Bella and I was, you know, being lusted after by a very angry vampire, like, if I was here and he was parked only a few meters away, I would kind of be like, okay, maybe he saw the van first, so maybe he could get to me in time. Whereas if he was literally the whole way across the parking lot, of course I would say, how the fuck did you get there? You were the whole way across the parking lot. You know? Just a thought. I caught her around the waist, moving with too much urgency to be as gentle as she would need me to be. Ooh. In the 100th of a second between yanking her slight form out of the path of death and crashing to the ground with her in my arms, I was vividly aware of her fragile, breakable body. When I heard her head thump against the ice, it felt as though I had turned to ice too. But I didn't even have a full second to ascertain her condition. I heard the van behind us grating and squealing as it twisted around the sturdy iron body of the girl's truck. It was changing course, arcing, coming for her again, as though she were a magnet pulling it toward us. A word I'd never said before in the presence of a lady slid between my clenched teeth. Oh my god. I was like, does he speak in this scene? What is he gonna say? He just swore. Come on, Stephenie, like, you wrote fucking Breaking Dawn. You can write the word fuck in a book. That is so funny. There is these moments where, and I think I might have maybe cut one or two of them out of chapter 2, so I'll go back and check, but there is just a few moments where whatever way she's written Edward, he's just so like, it's like a Shakespearean letter or something. He's so just like, I don't know, I literally don't even know what it is. Just the way he speaks is just so like elevated or something. It's so fucking funny. It literally tickles me so much. That has me twisted. So Edward has just been a bad bitch and sworn in front of a lady. I had already done too much. As I'd nearly flown through the air to push her out of the way, I'd been fully aware of the mistake I was making. Knowing that it was a mistake did not stop me, but I was not oblivious to the risk I was taking. Not just for myself, but for my entire family. Exposure. And this certainly wouldn't help, but there was no way I was going to allow the van to succeed in its second attempt to take her life. I dropped her and threw my hands out, catching the van before it could touch the girl. The force of it hurled me back into the car park beside her truck, and I could feel its frame buckle behind my shoulders. The van shuddered and shivered against the unyielding obstacle of my arms, and then swayed, balancing unstably on its two far tires. If I moved my hands, the back tire of the van was going to fall onto her legs. Oh, for the love of all that was holy, would the again with the fucking italics. So in that, love, all, and holy are all italicized. What? This woman literally must fucking love her, whatchamacallit, I was gonna say command I, her fucking italicized button. Let me read that again with all the italicizations. Oh, for the love of all that was holy, will the catastrophes never end. Was there anything else that could go wrong? I could hardly sit here holding the van up and wait for rescue, nor could I throw the van away. There was the driver to consider, his thoughts incoherent with panic. With an internal groan, I shoved the van so that it rocked away for us for an instant. As it fell back toward me, I caught it under the frame with my right hand, while I wrapped my left arm around the girl's waist again and dragged her out from under the threatening tire, pulling her tight against my side. Her body moved limply as I swung her around so that her legs would be in the clear. Was she conscious? How much damage had I done to her in my impromptu rescue attempt? I let the van drop, now that it could not hurt her. It crashed to the pavement, all the windows shattering in unison. Right, I know, I hate to be like, oh, you know, I said this in my last video, guys, you know, you're a fake fan if you didn't watch it. You're not a fake fan if you didn't watch it. Something I find interesting is like the way that Stephenie Meyer is clearly like embellishing some of the like actions or conversations or whatever. And like, obviously I love to see it because I want that detail, I want the character building, I want the world building, like I really appreciate that. But like, in this bit here, like she's essentially said that Edward has moved the van 3 times. Like, that does not happen. I was gonna say that doesn't happen in Twilight or in the film Twilight, but then it's like, maybe he's moving so quickly that Bella only notices him touching it once. And then like this thing of like all the windows in the car or in Tyler's van shatter, like again another thing I don't remember, but again it's like that was probably just something that wasn't put in to the film, but I don't know. I'm intrigued by like, I would love to, like, if there was ever, if I ever got a chance to talk to Stephenie Meyer, I would kind of love to talk to her about like the way she went about writing a book that was kind of already written, or that was kind of already, like the whole story was there from another angle, but the whole story was there. So I'm kind of like, I would be interested to know in what her rationale was in being like, will I include every single detail I want to and like embellish, or do I just write the exact same story but it just so happens to be his side of the conversation, not hers? Like obviously I appreciate the former, but it makes me question things, you know? I knew that I was in the middle of a crisis. How much had she seen? Had any other witnesses watched me materialise at her side and then juggle the van while I tried to keep her out from under it? These questions should be my biggest concern. But I was too anxious to really care about the threat of exposure as much as I should. Too panic-stricken that I might have injured her in my effort to save her life. As the screaming of the witnesses erupted around us, I leaned down to examine her face, to see if she was conscious, hoping fiercely that she was not bleeding anywhere. Her eyes were open, staring in shock. "Bella?" I asked urgently. "Are you alright?" "I'm fine." She said the words automatically in a dazed voice. Relief, so exquisite it was nearly pain, washed through me at the sound of her voice. I sucked in a breath through my teeth, and for once did not mind the agony of the accompanying burn in my throat. In a strange way, I almost welcomed it. "Be careful," I warned her. "I think you hit your head pretty hard." There had been no smell of fresh blood, a great mercy that. But this did not rule out internal damage. I was abruptly anxious to get her to Carlisle and a full complement of radiology equipment. Right, another thing there. There was no smell of fresh blood. In the film, Tyler is bleeding from his forehead whenever he like pokes his head out of the window. Like, here's another theory from me. Lauren, bitch, me too, what the fuck. I'm beyond attracted to Edward still, which is really quite unfortunate considering I'm 23 and he's like 112 at this point. Oh, one sec, my camera is gonzo again. Oh yeah, so like, she's saying this thing of there'd been no smell of fresh blood, but Tyler was bleeding. And then also, like, he's here being like, oh, like, this is kind of a theory, you know, little fan theory cooking up in here. He's here saying, oh, the threat of exposure, right, it was worse, or was not as bad as the threat of her dying. But it's kind of like, right, realistically, if the van had hit her and the scent of her blood was like literally spritzed across the fucking parking lot like a priest on fucking Lent or whatever with the holy water, like if her blood was all over the gaff, surely he would kind of like react to that and go a bit maybe ooky kooky upstairs and like kind of lash out. So surely it's kind of like exposure either way. Like he's gonna kind of like, if she died, the blood would make him go crazy, he'd probably kind of release himself as a vampire. If she doesn't die, he's just moved a truck 3 times, that kind of releases him as a vampire. So it's kind of like, you know, I'm just, my brain is quite empty. But whenever it comes to Twilight, that bitch is working overtime and a half. The gears are turning, you know. Anyway, so he wants to get her to Carlisle. Ow, she said, her tone comically shocked as she realised I was right about her head. That's what I thought. Relief made it funny to me, made me almost giddy. How in the... Her voice trailed off and her eyelids fluttered. How did you get over here so fast? The relief turned sour. The humour vanished. She had noticed too much. And then Edward killed her because she knew too much, and that was the end. Alas, no, there is approx 800 more pages. She had noticed too much. Now that it appeared the girl was in decent shape, the anxiety from my family became severe. I was standing right next to you, Bella. I knew from experience that if I was very confident as I lied, it made any questioner less sure of the truth. The accident scene was surrounded now, mostly students, children peering and pushing through the cracks to see if any mangled bodies were visible. There was a babble of shouting and a gush of shocked thought. I scanned the thoughts once to make sure that there was no suspicions yet, and then tuned them out and concentrated only on the girl. She was distracted by the bedlam. She glanced around, her expression still stunned, and tried to get to her feet. I put my hand lightly on her shoulder to hold her down. Just stay put for now. She seemed alright, but should she really be moving her neck? Again, I wished for Carlisle. My years of theoretical medical study were no match for his centuries of hands-on medical practice. This is something I picked up on in the first book. Edward makes a comment that he has like 2 medical degrees or something, that he's studied medicine for like essentially 2 degrees worth. And I kind of was like, oh, but like, babe, then would you not be a bit more hands-on whenever she's literally like dying on the floor at the end of the first book? So obviously he just has his degrees and has the knowledge, but because he doesn't have like the same control of the of like wanting blood and all that kind of crack, he obviously can't be as physical in his practice, which I find interesting. Anyway, that's just a top-up thought from a previous thought. So she's on the ground. But it's cold, she objected. She had almost been crushed to death 2 distinct times, and it was the cold that worried her. A chuckle slid through my teeth before I could remember that the situation was not funny. Bella blinked, and then her eyes focused on my face. You were over there. That sobered me again. She glanced toward the south, though there was nothing to see now but the crumpled side of the van. I tried to stay calm, to not panic. If only I could keep her quiet for a few moments, to give me a chance to destroy the evidence and undermine her story by disclosing her head injury. Shouldn't it be easy to keep this silent, secretive girl quiet? If only she would follow my lead, just for a few moments. Please, Bella, I said, and my voice was too intense, because I suddenly wanted her trust. Wanted it badly, and not just in regard to this accident. A stupid desire. What sense would it make for her to trust me? Why? She asked, still defensive. Trust me, I pleaded. Will you promise to explain everything to me later? It made me angry to have to lie to her again when I so wished that I could somehow deserve her confidence. When I answered her, it was a retort. Fine. Fine, she echoed in the same tone. I went downstairs. We've got master's students staying with us at the moment. And I literally had to go down and be like, okay, no questions, please. And poor one of our students is like very easily spooked, and she was like, oh my god. And I was like, yeah, listen, no questions. I'm doing questionable things alone in my bedroom. Okay, I'm gonna crack on. I think. Now, where the fuckity duckity was I? Oh yes, so Edward has just agreed. See, now that I've started the sweets, this was a mistake. Edward has just agreed that he'll explain later to her. And basically like all the like teachers and adults and all are kind of arriving to sort out the accident. So she was the only one who didn't accept the easy explanation, but she would be considered the least reliable witness. She had been frightened, traumatised, not to mention sustaining a blow to her head. Possibly in shock. It would be acceptable for her story to be confused, wouldn't it? I winced when I caught the thoughts of Rosalie, Jasper and Emmett just arriving on the scene. There would be hell to pay for this tonight. It was frustrating to wait, so many eyes on me, as the humans struggled with the van, trying to pull it away from us. I might have helped them just to speed the process, but I was already in enough trouble and the girl had sharp eyes. Finally, they were able to shift it far enough away for the EMTs to get to us with stretchers. A familiar grizzled face appraised me. Hey, Edward, Brett Warner said. He was also a registered nurse, and I knew him well from the hospital. It was a stroke of luck, the only luck today, that he was the first through to us. In his thoughts, he was noting that I looked alert and calm. You okay, kid? Perfect, Brett. Nothing touched me, but I'm afraid Bella here might have a concussion. She really hit her head when I yanked her out of the way. Brett turned his attention to the girl, who shot me a fierce look of betrayal. Oh, that was right. She was quite the martyr. She'd prefer to suffer in silence. The next EMT tried to insist that I allow myself to be treated, but it wasn't too difficult to dissuade him. I promised I would have my father examine me, and he let it go. With most humans, speaking with cool assurance was all that was needed. Most humans, not just the girl, of course. Oh, the girl. Did she fit into any of the normal patterns? As they put a neck brace on her, and her face flushed scarlet with embarrassment, I used the moment of distraction to quietly rearrange the shape of the dent in the tan car with the back of my foot. Only my siblings noticed what I was doing, and I heard Emmett's mental promise to catch anything I missed. The chief of police arrived before they had gotten Bella into the back of the ambulance. Though Bella's father's thoughts were past words, the panic and concern emanating from the man's mind drowned out just about every other thought in the vicinity. Wordless anxiety and guilt, a great swell of them, washed out of him as he saw his only daughter on the gurney. When Alice had warned me that killing Charlie Swan's daughter would kill him too, she had not been exaggerating. My head bowed with guilt as I listened to his panicked voice. "Bella," he shouted, "I'm completely fine, Dad," she sighed. "There's nothing wrong with me." Her assurance barely soothed his dread. He turned at once to the closest EMT and demanded more information. It wasn't until I heard him speaking, forming perfectly coherent sentences despite his panic, that I realised that his anxiety and concern were not wordless. I just could not hear the exact words. Charlie Swan was not as silent as his daughter, but I could see where she got it from. Interesting. I'd never spent much time around the town's police chief. I'd always taken him for a man of slow thought. Now I realised that I was the one who was slow. His thoughts were partially concealed, not absent. I could only make out the tenor, the tone of them. That's really cool. That's really interesting that, like, because I know there's this whole thing of, like, there's no reason, well, not reason per se, but it's kind of like, it's never fully explained why Bella can't think. Or can't think! You can't hear her thoughts. Bella, head empty. But it's like, given a little bit of it in that, like, whenever she becomes a vampire, it's kind of like, it doesn't quite translate into her power, but it's kind of like she can conceal her family almost with this kind of like bubble that she made. And in this, it's like she can conceal her thoughts within her own little bubble or something. So that's interesting to see that like Charlie kind of almost has the same, not gift, but like hit, like you can, as he said, as Edward literally says, you can see where she gets it from. That's really interesting. I wanted to listen harder to see if I could find in this new lesser puzzle the key to the girl's secrets. There was nothing in the thoughts of the EMTs to worry me. As far as they could tell, there wasn't anything seriously wrong with the girl, and Bella was sticking to the story I provided, for now. I figuratively kept one eye on her through the paramedics' thoughts. It was easy to find my father's familiar mind. What is it with Edward having fucking lines that rhyme? I'm loving the bars, I really am. That's so fun. So far there's been like at least one sentence per chapter. I'd love if that was like a sneaky thing, like there's one sentence in every single chapter that rhymes. That'd be cool. He was in his small office, all alone, the second stroke of luck in this luckless day. Carlyle. He'd heard my approach and was alarmed as soon as he saw my face. He jumped to his feet and leaned forward across the neatly organised walnut desk. Edward, you didn't... No, it's not that. He took a deep breath. Of course not. I'm sorry I entertained the thought. Your eyes, of course. I should have known. He noted my still golden eyes with relief. A van skidded across the ice, I whispered. I stared at the wall behind him while I spoke. Instead of a throng of framed diplomas, he had one simple oil painting, a favourite of his, an undiscovered Hassan. She was in the way. Alice saw it coming, but there wasn't time to do anything but really run across the lot and shove her out of the way. No one noticed, except for her. I had to stop the van too, but again, nobody saw that besides her. I'm sorry, Carlyle. I didn't mean to put us in danger. He circled the desk and embraced me for a short moment before stepping back. Carlyle is... I would really put it all aside for that man. I would die for him. Like, he is just literally the cutest little thing ever. She knows there's something wrong with me. That doesn't matter. If we have to leave, we leave. What has she said? I shook my head, a little frustrated. Nothing yet. Yet? She agreed to my version of events, but she's expecting an explanation. He frowned, pondering this. She hit her head. Well, I did that, I continued quickly. I knocked her to the ground fairly hard. She seems fine, but I don't think it will take much to discredit her account. I felt like a cad just saying those words. It sounds like I have a patient to check on. Please, I said. I'm so afraid that I hurt her. Carlyle's expression brightened. He smoothed his fair hair, just a few shades lighter than his golden eyes, and laughed. It's been an interesting day for you, hasn't it? In his mind I could see the irony, and it was humorous, at least to him. Quite the reversal of roles. Somewhere during that short, thoughtless second when I'd sprinted across the icy lot, I had transformed from killer to protector. I laughed with him, remembering how sure I'd been that Bella would never need protecting from anything more than from me. There was an edge to my laugh because, Van notwithstanding, that was still entirely true. This man, he's such a Lauren, ew! No, because it leaves a scar. So although I'm pretty sure it leaves a scar. The only reason I say that is because I have that fucking video of Jasper where he's like, battle scars. Oh my god, y'all are nasty as fuck. I would think classic neck, personally. Neck or I kind of like the wrist. I don't know why. I think that's kind of cool. Yeah, I think neck or wrist, something kind of classic. Y'all coochie and ass people are possibly a bit much. But yeah, I think I'd probably just go neck. Yeah, very classic and yeah, visible. I want people to know. I drink from my thing that says blood and I have blood in my mouth. I want people to know. I waited alone in Carlyle's office, one of the longest hours I had ever lived, listening to the hospital full of thoughts. Tyler Crowley, the van's driver, looked to be hurt worse than Bella, and the attention shifted to him while she waited her turn to be x-rayed. Carlisle kept in the background, trusting the PA's diagnosis that the girl was only slightly injured. This made me anxious, but I knew he was right. I tell you right, I'm so bad. And I said it to myself earlier whenever I was like getting ready, I was like, you're not to every single time that you need to say something, say, I tell you right, because I do that a lot. But I tell you right. There's these videos, I can't remember who makes them. I know Vanity Fair makes some of them, but I think there's another like channel on YouTube that makes them. And it's like they get in like a professional so-and-so and they look at like scenes from movies where they do something that they do. So like they would get in like a professional crime scene investigator and like look at like episodes of CSI, episodes of Sherlock, and your man will be like, oh, that was really good, like we actually do that, or like that was shit, we would never do that. And there's one and it's a resident doctor, and she, like, one of the scenes that they make her look at is the scene where Bella comes in Twilight and Carlisle does the like literal like 2-second test where he's like, yeah, concussion, but your grand babe might have PTSD. And the woman, like the resident doctor was like, you would never be able to tell if someone had PTSD right then and there. And that stupid test, you would never do that for a concussion. And like, I know she was right, but I was like, hey, you watch your fucking mouth. That's my man right there. You mind what you're saying. But that just reminded me of that, because they don't do like a description of Carlisle's side of doing this. Obviously not, because it's Edward's book. But you know, one glance at his face and she would be immediately reminded of me, of the fact that there was something not right about my family, and that might set her talking. She certainly had a willing enough partner to converse with. Tyler, consumed with guilt over the fact that he had almost killed her, couldn't seem to shut up about it. I could see her expression through his eyes, and it was clear that she wished he would stop. How did he not see that? There was a tense moment for me when Tyler asked her how she'd gotten out of the way. Edward pulled me out of the way. I exhaled, and then my breathing accelerated. I'd never heard her speak my name before. I liked the way it sounded, even just hearing it through Tyler's thoughts. I wanted to hear it for myself. Oh! That has me like... But that is also, I would think, a super duper fanfiction line. That whole thing of like, oh, do you know what it's actually so like? And this is not from personal experience, but it is such a Harry Potter fanfiction line, because Draco and Harry never call each other their first names. They say Potter and Malfoy. So, and I don't know this from first person experience, but it's always such a big thing in Harry fanfictions that it's like, if Harry calls Malfoy Draco for the first time, it's like, oh, gasp. My first name coming from his lips. So that is supremely a fanfiction line, and I love to see it, girls and boys and otherwise. Edward Cullen, she said, when Tyler didn't recognise whom she meant. I found myself at the door, my hand on the knob. I nearly read that wrong. She's pretty, he was thinking, almost in surprise. Even all messed up. Not my usual type. Still, I should take her out, make up for today. I was out in the hall then, ready to defend my gal's honour. I was out in the hall then, halfway to the emergency room, without thinking for 1 second about what I was doing. Luckily, the nurse entered the room before I could. It was Bella's turn for x-rays. I leaned against the wall in a dark nook just around the corner and tried to get a grip on myself while she was wheeled away. Surely getting a grip on yourself is the last thing you should be doing in a hospital, Edward. That was unfortunate. My apologies. I stayed where I was for as long as I could, but impatience got the best of me, and I took a roundabout way to the radiology room. She'd already been moved back to the ER, but I was able to peek at her x-rays while the nurse's attention was elsewhere. Carlisle caught me there. You look better, he commented. I just looked straight ahead. We weren't alone. The hall's full of orderlies and visitors. Ah, yes. He stuck her x-rays to the light board, but I didn't need a second look. I see. She's absolutely fine. Well done, Edward. The sound of my father's approval created a mixed reaction in me. I would have been pleased, except that I knew he would not approve of what I was going to do now. At least, he would not approve if he knew my real motivations. I think I'm going to talk to her before she sees you. I'm beginning to think the girl just has really bad luck. Oh my god, call her the girl. Always in the wrong place at the wrong time. Forks is certainly the wrong place for her with you here. I flinched. Go ahead, smooth things over. I'll join you momentarily. Sorry, that was a very up close view of my face there. I'm using grease paint to make myself super white, but while I was doing this whole like hair and makeup situation, it was truly a moment of nostalgia, because this is literally what I looked like in like 5th class, except my hair was a bit straighter. My hair's super curly now, I don't know where that came from. But whenever I started wearing makeup, which was probably not until a few years after my Twilight phase, like realistically I don't think I wore an awful lot of makeup until I was maybe 14 or 15. But when I started wearing makeup, I used to mix Sudocreme in with my foundation so that it would be super duper pale. And whether that was a like goth thing or more of a I still thought I was fucking Alice thing, it's something that happened. It's something I did for several years, I would say. So putting on white makeup again was very like, been here before, been there, done that, bought the fucking Team Edward t-shirt, which I literally did. When I got to the ER, Tyler was mumbling under his breath, still apologising. The girl was trying to escape his remorse by pretending to sleep. Oh my god, okay, Neve, love that you brought that up. If anyone hasn't read Neve's a little comment there, Neve said, do you remember whenever Twilight got banned in school? In our primary school, Twilight got banned in our primary school because of me. Our teacher, for 5th and 6th year, she borrowed the books off me. So I'll tell a lie, she borrowed Twilight off me, and then I think she maybe got like New Moon off her friend or something. But then she borrowed Eclipse off me, and we were like 11, 12 tops, and I completely forgot that, like, realistically, we probably shouldn't have been reading Eclipse and Breaking Dawn. Because Eclipse, at the end of Eclipse, they have the whole fucking discussion about like getting married, and like Bella starts being like, Edward, you don't understand, I want to jump your cold bones. But I completely forgot that happened in Eclipse. I lent Eclipse to our teacher, and she obviously got to the bit where she's discussing wanting to jump his cold bones, and she was like, oh my god, literally every child in the school is reading this book, and brought it to the principal. And I'm pretty sure Neve, I can't remember, she said she sat us down and was like, no more. I could have sworn there was an intercom announcement, but I could be so wrong as well. But yeah, the only reason that happened is because Miss Benson borrowed Eclipse off me and got to the point where it was like, Bella is horny as fuck. So, sorry guys, that's on me. Finally, I took a deep breath and moved into view. When Tyler saw me, he started to speak, but I put one finger to my lips. Is she sleeping? I murmured. Bella's eyes snapped open and focused on my face. They widened momentarily, and then narrowed in anger or suspicion. Hey, Edward, Tyler said. I'm really sorry. I raised one hand to halt his apology. No blood, no foul, I said wryly. Without thinking, I smiled too widely at my own private joke. I was just about to say, that's a bit fucking... a scooch on the obvious side. It was amazingly easy to ignore Tyler, lying no more than 4 feet from me, his deeper wounds still oozing blood. I'd never understood how Carlisle was able to do that. Ignore the blood of his patients in order to treat them. If you were focusing on something else hard enough, the temptation would be nothing at all. Even fresh and exposed, Tyler's blood had nothing on Bella's. How come you weren't strapped to a gurney like the rest of us? Her impatience made me smile again. I could hear Carlisle in the hall now. It's all about who you know, I said lightly. But don't worry, I came to spring you. I watched her reaction carefully as my father entered the room. Her eyes went round and her mouth actually fell open in surprise. I'm surprised. I thought the next line is, I groaned internally, yes, she'd certainly noticed the resemblance. I thought she was going to be like, yes, she'd noticed that he was
Yeah, I'll cheat on you with your dad. I'm going to fuck your dad.
Alas, that is not the line that Stephenie Meyer has written into this book. So, Miss Swan, how are you feeling? Carlisle asked. He had a wonderfully soothing bedside manner that put most patients at ease within moments. I couldn't tell how it affected Bella. I'm fine, she said quietly. Carlisle stepped closer to her and ran his fingers gently over her scalp until he found the bump under her hair. I was caught off guard by the wave of emotion that crashed upon me. I had seen Carlisle work with humans 1,000 times. Years ago, I had even assisted him informally, though only in situations where blood was not involved. So it wasn't a new thing to me to watch him interact with the girl. The girl! So it wasn't new to me to watch him interact with the girl as if he were as human as she was. I'd envied his control many times, but that was not the same as this emotion. I've envied him more than this control. I ached for the difference between Carlisle and me, that he could touch her so gently, without fear, knowing he would never harm her. Well, Carlisle said, your father is in the waiting room. You can go home with him now, but come back if you feel dizzy or have trouble with your eyesight at all. Her father was here? I swept through the thoughts in the crowded waiting room, but I couldn't pick his subtle mental voice out of the group before she was speaking again, her face anxious. Can't I go back to school? Maybe you should take it easy today, Carlisle suggested. Her eyes flickered back to me. Does he get to go back to school? She's again, so much fucking italicization, but you know what? I love it there. Act normal. Smooth things over. Ignore the way it feels when she looks me in the eye. Someone has to spread the good news that we survived, I said. Actually, Carlisle corrected, most of the school seems to be in the waiting room. I anticipated her reaction this time, her aversion to attention. She didn't disappoint. Oh no, she moaned, and put her hands over her face. I liked that I'd finally guessed right, that I was beginning to understand her. She stumbled forward, off balance, into Carlisle's arms. He caught and steadied her. The next line is, again, the envy flooded through me. Bitch me to the fuck. What I would not give to stumble and fall into Carlisle's arms. There is nothing I would not give to do that. There's literally nothing. Firstborn child, do you know what? He can have it. Literally. Of course, that wouldn't bother Carlisle. He made sure she was balanced and then dropped his hands. Take some Tylenol for the pain, he instructed. It doesn't hurt that bad. Carlisle smiled as he signed her chart. Sounds like you were extremely lucky. She turned her face slightly to stare at me with hard eyes. Lucky Edward happened to be standing next to me. Oh, well, yes, Carlisle agreed quickly, hearing the same thing in her voice that I heard. All yours, Carlisle thought. Handle it as you think best. Thanks so much, I whispered, quick and quiet. Neither human heard me. Well, I'd made the mess, so it was only fair that I had to deal with it. I remember how I had hoped, before all the chaos, that she would approach me. This was like a mockery of that wish. Can I talk to you for a minute? She hissed at me. Her warm breath swept across my face and I had to stagger back a step. Her appeal had not abated one bit. Every time she was near me, it triggered all my worst, most urgent instincts. Your father is waiting for you, I reminded her, my jaw clenched tight. She glanced towards Carlisle and Tyler. Tyler was paying us no attention at all, but Carlisle was monitoring my every breath. Carefully, Edward. I'd like to speak to you alone, if you don't mind, she insisted in a low voice. I wanted to tell her that I did mind very much, but I knew I would have to do this eventually. I might as well get on with it. I had a show to put on now. I knew the role I would play. I had the character down. I would be the villain. Fucking Nicki Minaj. They want to make me the bad guy. Chun-Li. Yeah, alright, Edward. Reel it in. I would lie and ridicule and be cruel. It went against all my better impulses, the human impulses that I'd clung to through so many years. I'd never wanted to deserve trust more than in this moment, when I had to destroy all possibility of it. I turned on her. What do you want? I asked coldly. She cringed back slightly from my hostility. Her eyes turned bewildered, her face shifting into the very expression that had haunted me. You owe me an explanation, she said in a small voice. What little colour she had drained from her ivory skin. It was very hard to keep my voice harsh. I saved your life. I don't owe you anything. She flinched. It stung like acid to watch my words hurt her. I tell you, a fucking better, I was going to say, I tell you right, a better thing to have put in for the drinking game would have been flinched. Because it's literally been said like 6 or 7 fucking times in this chapter. This is like, that's actually one thing I noticed about Stephenie Meyer's writing. And I don't really have an issue with it because like, the words are right, you know what I mean? Like flinched is the right word for that situation, blah blah blah, whatever. But she does kind of like pick phrases and verbs that she kind of like, they really are basically like if you had written the essay for junior cert English, your teacher would be like, you've used this too many times now, you need to use a thesaurus and get a better word. And I don't really mind it, but like I would have noticed it more if I had said, right, let's flinch to be one of the things for the drinking game, and then I would have had a lot more drunk by now, do you know? You promised, she whispered. Bella, you hit your head and you don't know what you're talking about. Her chin came up then. There's nothing wrong with my head. How's your head? Haven't had any complaints. She was angry now, and that made it easier for me. I met her glare, arranging my face so it was colder, harder. What do you want from me, Bella? I want to know the truth. I want to know why I'm lying for you. What she wanted was only fair. It frustrated me to have to deny her. What do you think happened? I nearly growled. Her words poured out in a torrent. All I know is that you weren't anywhere near me. Tyler didn't see you either, so don't tell me I hit my head too hard. The van that was going to crush us both, and it didn't. Your hands left dents in the side of it. And you left a dent in the other car, and you're not hurt at all, and the van should have smashed my legs, but you were holding it up. Suddenly she clenched her teeth together, and her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. Yes, the books are absolutely better than... I would say yes, the books are better than the movies. Except for Twilight. But I think that's only because I just love the Twilight movie so much. Like, realistically, the book probably is better. But I just love Twilight, the film, so fucking much that I'm gonna be like, no, the Twilight film was way better than the book. But the soundtrack for the Twilight film is just so fucking cracker that I think that's what like really pushes it over the edge, is that like the soundtrack. I love that like blue tint. Actually, Clodagh, once again getting a shout out, Clodagh pointed out I have so much college work that I've shot with like a blue tinted light. And Clodagh literally, I'd say this was only maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think I either sent her a TikTok or I think I was watching Twilight again and I was saying something about the fact that I love the blue tint. I just love that it's so like stylized and like it's so blue. You see some of the scenes and you're like, that is quite literally like primary blue. And she was like, I can't believe I've never recognised, like, that's why all your fucking college work has a blue light over it, is because of Twilight. And I was like, how? How did you not recognise this? This shit came into my life age 12 and has affected, I would say, most choices since, you know? So, to answer your question with a far too long answer, yes, the books are better, but I think the Twilight movie is the best thing out of the whole, like, books of series and books and series of films and stuff and everything. I stared at her, my expression thoroughly derisive. Then what I really felt was awe. She had seen everything. You think I lifted a van off you? I asked, elevating the level of sarcasm in my tone. She answered with one stiff nod. My voice grew mocking. Nobody will believe that, you know. She made an effort to control her emotions. Her anger, it looked like. When she answered me, she spoke each word with slow deliberation. I'm not going to tell anybody. She meant it. I could see that in her eyes. Even furious and betrayed, she would keep my secret. Then why does it matter? I asked, working to keep my voice severe. It matters to me, she said intensely. I don't like to lie, so there'd better be a good reason why I'm doing it. She was asking me to trust her, just as I wanted her to trust me. But this was a line I could not cross. My voice stayed callous. Can you just thank me and get it over with? Thank you, she said, and then she fumed in silence, waiting. You're not gonna let it go, are you? No. In that case, I couldn't tell her the truth if I wanted to, and I didn't want to. I'd rather she made up her own story than know what I was, because nothing could be worse than the truth. I was an undead nightmare, straight from the pages of a horror novel. I hope you enjoyed disappointment. We scowled at each other. She flushed pink and ground her teeth again. Why did you even bother? Her question wasn't one that I was expecting or prepared to answer. I lost my hold on the role I was playing. I felt the mask slip from my face, and I told her this one time the truth. I don't know. I memorized her face one last time. It was still set in lines of anger, the blood not yet faded from her cheeks. And then I turned and walked away from her. We made it, guys. We did it in only 2 lives instead of 3. I'm very glad for that. Thank you to anyone who's come and watched this. I sincerely appreciate it, because I know this wasn't as organised as it should have been. I wanted to get the video out on like Tuesday and then be able to post like Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, and give a few more days notice. Honestly, I would have loved to post about this like 3 weeks ago, because obviously like people have plans for Halloween night and stuff. I can't expect you to give them up for cringing for 2 hours, you know. So anyone who has turned up and has stayed with it, or even anyone who watched literally 30 seconds and then went, yeah, do you know what, I'm actually alright, even that, appreciate that beyond words. Thank you so much. I'm thinking maybe like, see, I don't know exactly what chapter is which, but I'd love to do like a live for maybe like the chapter that, if I could work out what chapter they have their first kiss in, I would love to do a live for that, because I know I will be literally so fucking excited. I'll be like a child on Christmas for that chapter. So I'll see. I'd love to say, oh, we'll do every 3rd chapter live or something like that, but it is a case of like I do have a job and so I thought it was a bit of a pain in the arse. So I'll see what the story is, but yeah, would love any feedback on what you guys think of the whole live, because now you have this live version versus 2 of the YouTube versions. So yeah, would love feedback on that. And just feedback on how things are going in general. Again, I said it in my last video, you don't fucking have to give feedback, do you know? Your presence is a present, kiss my ass. Said Kanye West, which is a bit of an unfortunate reference to make in this day and age. But literally anyone who's watched 30 seconds of even one of the videos, you have my sincere thanks. Listen lads, I think I'm going to wrap this up for now. Again, thank you so much to anyone who's tuned in. I really do very sincerely appreciate it. Whenever I was doing my makeup, I was kind of a bit like, oh Jesus, like here's me getting in full makeup for like something that people might not even watch, or like only like one person will watch. But do you know what, right, even if it had only been one person, I actually think I would have been just as excited to do it. Like whenever I actually hit live, like hit the button for live, I was like, ooh, like here we go. So yeah, really appreciate it guys. Happy Halloween, happy Samhain, we're going to November now, yeehaw. Mind yourselves, hope you all had a decent Halloween, even though we're in these crazy times. Much love from chubby Alice Cullen, and I'll see you in the next one guys. Thanks and goodbye.